and turn the time over to Jen. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining class. I'm so excited about this class today, and it seems like a lot of you are pretty excited about it too. So I'm going to give you a little broad overview of what the project is, take you through the materials, and then we'll actually get into the nitty-gritty of the work. So this is going to be a reusable wrapping fabric that you can use this holiday season or obviously whenever. And it's, like I said, reusable. So it's something that you could potentially, see every Christmas, what family member gets the wrap fabric this year, just kind of a fun, sustainable way, and also kind of create special little keepsake pieces. Off the top, I will say this is going to be something that I'm going to use to wrap a fairly small box. So this is a pair of earrings that I have in a box. That's going to be what this project will take you through today. So what you'll need to get started is fabric, and I'll walk you through, once we get started, I'll walk you through the measurement process of it. Right here, I have a 17-inch by 17-inch piece of fabric. It's just a basic cotton, just a basic cream cotton, and you'll need 2 pieces of fabric like that. Embroidery hoop. For this particular project, I like the flexible kind of hoops that are pretty easy on and off, just because ultimately it's not going to stay in the hoop. So for this project, I like this, but you can use whatever embroidery hoop you might have on hand. Tapestry needles. An embroidery needle, I have number 5 DMC is what I traditionally use. Just a measuring tape so that you can measure your fabric. 1 skein of DMC floss. I'm using kind of a pine green today. It's DMC number 3051, but you could use whatever green you wanted, whatever color you wanted, honestly. Just a pair of scissors, embroidery scissors, regular scissors. These are just some Craft Smart kind of everyday use scissors. I have a pin cushion with all of my pretty little pins for when we are ready at the end to stitch the back to the front. A heat erasable pen. You could also use an air dry pen. Those are the 2 I would actually most recommend for a project like this, because I'll show you when I show you the way I draw it out. It's pretty loosey goosey in terms of it's not super specific, but you don't want to see it at the end, obviously. So something that's either heat erasable or air erasable is the easiest way to get rid of those marks. And then last but definitely not least, we have our yarn. So this is Impeccable Yarn. I have the fern color, deep forest green, and brown are the 3 colors that I'm using in this. And I'll kind of point out along the way as I'm going through the project, the different places where you can make it your own, because, I'm just giving you a guideline, but there are so many ways for you to make this special to yourself or to your own preferences or to that particular person that you're gifting. It's a pretty easy project to adapt to your needs, but these are the basics that you need. I also have an iron on my table because I'll iron halfway through, but I think that's it. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. Like I said, the first step is figuring out the size of your fabric. So I took my box and played around a little bit with how much I needed to be able to tie it. You could go bigger than this size for a box this size. This is a 3.5-inch by 3.5-inch box, but I wouldn't go any smaller because you don't want it to be a huge amount of excess fabric, but you do want to be able to wrap it easily and also be able to see the detailing that we're going to stitch on the fabric itself. So how I did that is I just measured to find the center. This is it's 24 inches across, which means that the center is at 12 inches. So, okay, work with me here. Okay, so the center is right here at 12 inches. So I'm just going to mark that. And from there, I am going to go I'm going to make a 1/2 inch note, and then I want my trees to be 1.5 inches. So that'll go to the 10-inch mark. And then I'll skip a 1/2 inch and do another 1.5 inch line. See, it's pretty free form. And then another skip a 1/2 inch, draw a 1/2 inch line, skip a 1/2 inch, draw a 1.5 inch line. And then I can fit in one more because you need to make sure that you leave space for the seam at the edge. You don't want to be stitching over your tree. And then let's just go ahead and do that again. So we're going to leave a 1/2 inch and then do a 1.5 inch line, skip a 1/2 inch, 1.5 inches, skip a 1/2 inch, 1.5 inches, skip a 1/2 inch, 1.5 inches, skip. There you go. And then I'm just going to double check myself that I have 5 on each side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. And then just in case you kind of get lost in your work, I like to just make a little arrow so you know the directional of your tree. And if you feel more comfortable doing more or less, you're welcome to, but that's why it's nice to have a pen that will go away eventually, that you won't be able to see whether or not your stitches cover it. All right, so now we are done with that part. So we're ready actually already to get to the stitching. So the way I'm going to do this is alternating little Christmas trees. So I'll do like a pine, fern, pine, fern, pine, pine, fern, pine, fern, pine. But this is another opportunity where if you want to do one side the light green and one side the dark, or if you wanted to do everything in one color, or if you wanted to do red and green trees, whatever you wanted to do, there's so many opportunities to customize this. So I'm going to pop on my little embroidery hoop here, and tension, if you've done embroidery, you know, like the tension of your fabric and having a really good tension is crucial to being both good and enjoyable. Let's just say it's more fun to stitch when your fabric is in there, great. But because we are only putting in the tip on this piece, it's a little bit hard to get great tension on this first section. So but like I said, this is pretty free-form stitching, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. All right, so got that in there. It's pretty easy to stretch and tighten in these rubber frames is one thing that I like about them. So we're pretty good. And then we're ready to get going. I've pre-threaded my needles because for some reason, when I'm on camera, I have such a hard time getting a needle threaded, the pressure of it. So I'm gonna tie a knot at the end. I'm trying to do everything I can to make it possible that if you need to wash these, that they're washable at the end. So I like to make sure that I have a knot, and then all I'm going to do is just come up at the top of this first part, pull your needle through, and I'm using the tapestry needle with the yarn, and I'll use the embroidery needle with the embroidery floss if that wasn't made clear. And I'm going to do 5 little basically arrows that are continually going outward. Pretty free form, like I said. These are made by you for someone that you love, so all those little special touches are noticeable most likely to everybody in a good way. So you do your first arrow and then just work on down, making it a little bit wider as you go. Can everybody see that? Everything coming through. You do want to make sure as you're stitching and getting a sense of things that you do leave a little space, because the very base of it is going to be a little single stitch of brown for the tree trunk. And I do find if you pull that yarn more slowly, it won't knot up like it has been doing for me in the back a little bit. I find that to be true with so much of embroidery. Whenever I try to go really fast, I end up slowing myself down with things like knots. So just pull it through nice and easy, always going back in that hole at the center. And we'll do one more, just a little bit wider out. Now, one thing that I will note about this is once you've finished one tree, you're going to want to knot it off on the back and then skip down to the next, just to avoid having lots of excess yarn in the back of the fabric. So I'm just going to make sure that that's. And make sure your knot is pretty tight, but you don't want to make it so that it buckles the the yarn in the front. And it's up to you whether you want to single or double knot it. And then we'll just trim that off. And since we're already going with the pine color, or actually this is deep forest, maybe I forgot the name. So then we'll just switch down, skip one and go down here to this. Leave room for the lighter green and go down and start the next tree. Okay, thanks. And these aren't, you know, like you can see, they're not perfect little trees, but I think they turn out pretty darn cute at the end. And if you feel more comfortable putting more, this is where you can probably see what I was talking about. If you feel more comfortable putting a little bit more in terms of lines and guidance for yourself when you're stitching, that's perfectly fine too. Check every once in a while, make sure you're not getting any knots back there. All right, so then once we have the second dark green one done, then I'm going to go back up and do the light green one and do this trunks, and then I'll move the embroidery hoop down. I like to do it that way just so you're not moving the embroidery hoop back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's a little bit of wear on the fabric and kind of on the stitching. So that's a good way to kind of get it all done and then just move right along. So I'm going to pull out the light green and again, just tie our knot and stitch it the same. And if you need to retighten the fabric during, I oftentimes do, especially on this section. I think it would be cute too if you did kind of alternating colors within the tree. That could be pretty cute too. It could probably be cool too to use some really super chunky yarns and really give a lot of texture and dimension. That would be fun. And obviously, not to go on and on about your options, but you could, you know, the fabric you could choose too. You could just use a holiday printed fabric too, like a fun holiday print, and not even, you know, maybe not even stitch on it if you didn't want to. You could just use fabric. All right, so now we've got all three of these trees done before we move the hoop. So I'm going to do the final knot on this. And then add our little tree trunks. And these are just going to be one single little brown stitch. So just come up at the base of your line and then go in up at the middle of your bottom stitch of the tree. And there you have it. Knot that off too. Yeah, those would all poinsettias and snowflakes and leaves and French knot berries. That would all be super, super cute. And in the end, you'll see that this will be kind of a diagonal across the fabric. So it'll be on the little pieces that you tie. You have to be a little bit mindful as you're doing these of knowing what will be visible, because obviously a lot of it, once you tie a knot with fabric, it will be covered up. So it took me a couple of tries to get the placement exactly how I wanted it for this particular project. Okay. All right, so once we have the 3 done there, I'm going to move my hoop down. And we'll get in those last, maybe we could fit in 3. And as long as you're careful, you should be fine to put this right over the tree that you've already stitched. Don't be pulling on it like crazy or anything, but it should be fine. So, and now we'll be able to get it really good and tight in there, and the stitching will be a little bit easier to manage. All right. Yeah, much better. Okay, so now we know that our next tree is this light green color. Oop. I see a question, how did I get started with embroidery originally? As a very young child, my mom taught my brothers and I how to do cross stitch. So I have been doing needlework for a really long time. We used to make homemade ornaments, and we have a particular family Christmas tree. It was a Christmas tree of little tiny cross stitched ornaments that we made for my grandmother. That is actually my mom. I think my mom has it now. So I started cross stitching when I was very young, but it's only been about 4 years that I've been doing embroidery. I saw a pattern on Etsy, and I thought it was cute, and I had never done it, and so I just decided to do it, and it really snowballs, you guys. I became obsessed with it pretty quickly and started stitching a lot of patterns, and then I started converting one of my friends who's an illustrator. I started converting her illustrations into patterns and stitching those, and then I decided I wanted to try to design my own, so I started doing that. And here we are now. It's been a journey, but it's pretty rare that there's a day that I don't do some form of embroidery at this point. Even yesterday, we drove to Palm Springs, and I even took embroidery in the car with me. Okay, so one more on this tree, and you can see this is it's pretty. You can get into a real groove with it and kind of into a flow, and it's really fun, and it goes by very quickly. Okay. So now these are both going to be green. So this little dot marks our center. So these are both going to be the dark green, and I'm looking at this and thinking I need some new yarn on it. So you don't want to have to knot in the middle of a tree. We're trying to keep the bulk on the back down as much as we can. So let's see how I do threading a needle on camera. Look at that. First try. Yep. Yeah, we actually had in our family, we would always wrap, my grandmother got, I don't remember what they're called, pork tenderloin, kind of like pork tenderloin sandwiches from the Schwann's man, and he always brought them in these really great boxes. And there was one particular box that she would always, every year it was who's going to get the gift in the Schwann's box. I think my mom still has that too. We're kind of a nostalgic family, so I love things like this that can really be passed around, like the best form of hot potato. You could embellish these too. Now that I'm looking at them, you could put little stars on top of the trees if you wanted to. That would be really cute. Or even some French knots as little ornaments in different colors on them. But I hope you guys do try it and tag, because it's so fun as a maker to see other people doing these projects. It's really, really fun. It's pulling too fast, got a little knot, but we're good. The license plate is so happy. I love it. Who doesn't love that? Don't you all just, I don't know if you can hear the sound of the needle going through the fabric. Everyone loves that sound, I think. Okay. Oop. And then we'll just skip to the other one. And now we're going in the other direction with the tops. So you don't have to, but kind of marks the center point, and then we switch. This fabric that I'm using right here is 17 inches by 17 inches, and that will cover my 3.5 inch box. So the box that I'm going to be wrapping is this little jewelry box. You just need to measure, do a little bit of calculating to figure out how much fabric you need to cover your box. But anything around that size, around the 3-inch box or so, 17 inch by 17 inch should be pretty good for you. And this is just like a standard quilting cotton fabric that I'm using, but you could use linen, you could use a printed fabric, you could use, I mean, heck, you could do it on velvet. I think that would be really, for a really elegant looking gift, that would be beautiful. Maybe a little bit harder to stitch on, but still, you know, then the fabric, you know, the wrapping fabric actually becomes part of the gift itself. You pronounce Furoshiki. I pronounce it just like that, Furoshiki. My sister wraps box top and box bottoms. Oh, I love that. Yep. That's someone who really puts in a lot of attention to detail. I can tell about your sister. Sure, absolutely. Thank you for I'll be better. Okay, so now that we've got these done, we'll do our little tree trunks, and then we'll move our hoop again. You're welcome. Thank you for telling me. I think I sometimes just drift, you know, you drift in towards your body. Okay, so just gonna come up here, go in. Do our knot. Keep that out of the way. And like I said, after I finish this, I will back it. But if you like the look of it, you know, of seeing the stitching, you don't need to. You can, as long as you have a fabric that's not going to fray tremendously terribly, you could leave it, you know, raw edges. You could use a pinking shears and make a cute little raw edge and save yourself that step. And then people could actually see that you stitched it by yourself. Okay. Oh, that sounds really beautiful. Light green silk and moss yarn, various greens and antique embroidery floss. That will be, like I said, I think that depending on how you do it, the wrapping fabric itself becomes a big part of the actual gift. It's beautiful. Okay. All right, now we're on the home stretch. We've crossed the center line. Oops. Do our knot here, and then we'll move our hoop. I tie it off instead of just going to the next tree because I'm using a light colored fabric, and I feel like you would be able to see that yarn. And if you don't mind that, you don't have to. It does, as you can see, doing one stitch and then having to knot it every time is a little bit monotonous, but that's why I do it that way. If you use a darker fabric, you wouldn't have to. I would be mindful of how much tension you pull it with so that you're not kind of buckling towards, you're not pulling the fabric a little bit too tight, if that makes sense. Okay, so now we're going to do another light green one. Check. It's probably enough. It's probably enough yarn on this one still. You're welcome, Kate. I hope I'm not going too quickly for anyone. I want to finish the project and wrap it so you can see the whole thing within our hour that we have today. So switch back to our dark green. And I'll also say, if you feel really comfortable, you don't even need to put it in a hoop. Just for me, I feel like I can get much more consistent stitches. I think that I'm only seeing the link information, but I think that that is what it's called, the faux wood. Yep. A lot of times you can find these in an oval shape as well. This one is round, but they're just nice and easy and flexible. I mean, they have a cool look to them anyway. If you wanted to, you know, if you did embroidery work in them, they have a cool look to keep your finished work in them as well. Nancy, I see your question. Okay, thanks, Maddie. Nancy, for determining the box, I typically would say that you don't need to have a square box. I don't think. It's just a little bit probably more math if you don't. But I would say you would want around 9 or 10 inches from the edge of your box to the corner of the fabric. So you just need to work backwards from there. Does that make sense? Like this was a 3.5 inch box. So I have like 9 inches, I think I had from each corner. So it's a 22-inch across piece of fabric. Okay, you're welcome. It's something that I did a little bit of trial and error, obviously, when I was coming up with this project, and that's how I did it. Okay, this is our last light green, and then one more dark green, and then we're going to move on to attaching the back to the front. Goodness. So you can see any simple motif would work, like people were saying holly or snowflakes. You could even do little, squares with a little bow on top for actual little presents that you could stitch. There's so many fun wreaths. Obviously, you could do little wreaths. Okay, so now we're going to add our trunks. And for this, I will say I like using 3 needles and keeping them all threaded. It makes it go a lot faster, unless you love threading and rethreading needles. Okay. Trying to remember to keep it in the center. Okay. Move on to our last tree. And you kind of, once you work with these, you get that there's like this kind of rolling, roll it, snap it into place. Tighten. Right, so this needs to be dark green. I think this is enough. Got it, and we'll just stitch our last little tree. Oh, thank you. Make sure my iron is hot for when I'm ready for it. Last little one. Is that 1, 2, 3, 4? Yeah. Okay. All right. And we're done with our trees. Yes, it is a quick and easy project, Deidre, and it's just really cute and sweet. I love it. It's super fun. So now what we're gonna do, I'm doing this on my table for the sake of this class, but normally obviously I would be on an ironing board to do it, but it'll be quick, and I'm just gonna try to, you know, knock out some of those wrinkles, and then if you just lightly go over those trees, you can see hopefully on there that the line from that pen just disappears as soon as it gets hot. I work with these pens a lot in my embroidery work. Then you don't have to be quite so worried about covering every single little thing up. So now that we've got this, and I've already got my I've got my backing already done, I'm just gonna go ahead and iron a 1/2 inch seam around the edge of this fabric. Yep, a friction pen, exactly, Deidre. So just flip it over. I do have a handy dandy measure, but you could also use the this tape too, the measuring tape. So we're going to just quickly eyeball this, do a quick 1/2 inch around. Again, I don't recommend ironing straight onto a table, but I didn't want to have to get up and walk away for a minute, so. And again, if you wanted to leave the edges raw, you could do that and be done with the project right now, or you could maybe just do a decorative stitch around the edge, but not add a backing so people could still see the yarn and all the work that you've done. That's fine too. And if you have a sewing machine, instead of hand stitching the edging like I'm about to do, I'm just going to use a running stitch. You could use a blanket stitch. You could use a sewing machine. That would be great too. Just options, options, options. All right. Everything survived. The table's good. Everything's good. So all we're going to do now is just lay the back over the front, line it up, and that's when you're going to, again, if you feel super confident, you don't need to pin it, but I like to have everything pinned in place. So we just do this, and you can use as few or as many as you'd like. Probably do it with few, 3 or 4 on each edge, maybe. Just line that up. And you can see here now where if you were sewing this, you could be done in a heartbeat, finished with this. And I do have a sewing machine, but I'm Not a great sewer, my friends. I'm a pretty mediocre sewer. This is a great way to use up fabric and embroidery scraps. You know, you could, I mean, yeah, you could even stitch different pieces of fabric together instead of it being like like a motif that you embroidered on. The embroidery could be making kind of a patchwork of your fabrics. That would be pretty cool. Okay. Oh. Right. And I will say too, the measuring that you put, as with most things in life, right? The work that you put in at the front with measuring and getting everything just so will pay benefits in the end. You know, nothing has to be perfect, but the more effort that you put into the measuring, it will be better. So this is, we're all pinned and ready to go. And as I mentioned, I'm going to do a running stitch with this. And I'm just going to start inside one edge. I don't know what that noise is. I'm using embroidery floss for this part. I took 3 strands and doubled it, tied a knot at the end, and then I'm just going to run it through, trying to keep your stitches kind of even, but I'm just going to use a running stitch. Do about 3 or 2 or 3, and then just go through and stretch it. Well, that wasn't great, but so hopefully you can see that on the camera. I'll try to come a little bit closer. I'm just going up and down, and then pulling it through. And what's nice about having it double, having it knotted at the end here is you don't have to worry about it coming through the eye of the needle all the time. Usually I can get about 2 or 3 per time. So we'll just be a little mindful as you get to the edge, just so that you're at a point where you go through all of the layers of the fabric so that you're catching that corner. And then we just switch to the next side. This is a really simple way to do this. I did do one version with a blanket stitch, and that was pretty cool too. But I loved how quick this way was. I have to admit, sometimes I'm so excited to see how something turns out that But before I get too short of a strand left, I'm going to switch to new thread. So I'm just going to do a go halfway through and knot it on the inside. And then we'll start our next bit of thread. And I think I'm actually going to be able to get this done in time. I'm so impressed. Right. So I'm just going to pull it all the way through and then knot the end. I always like to trim off the tail, you know, fairly close to the knot, just to keep it tidy. Right, so now we're just going to pick up where we left off and come through, make sure that that tucks in the back, and then just keep going. So up and down, up, down. Oh my goodness, I just poked my finger. Okay. So Again, we're approaching an edge here, so you just want to make sure that you go through all of the parts of the fabric on the corners. Thank you, Patty. And then we're going to come up. Got a little knot there. Okay. Almost there. If you had a sewing machine that does some of those really cool decorative stitches, that'd be fun too. My mom has a pretty cool sewing machine like that. Okay, on the home stretch, and I'm gonna need to rethread my needle. Isn't that always the way? So again, I'm just gonna go halfway through and just tie a quick knot under there. I bet you can sew on a button, Kay. But yes, this is pretty straightforward. So I'm going to just cut some more. And then when I'm separating embroidery floss, I know there's so many different schools of thought on everything with embroidery, I feel like, but I always like to come through the center and just usually pulls apart pretty easily. Thread that needle. Knot at the end. Trim the tail. Oh, I love that, Fran. You know, hand washing is probably the best way, Karen, but I think if you did it on delicate, I think all of these, really the only embroidery floss I've ever heard much about bleeding or any problems when you wash it is red. And I don't even know that that's a real problem anymore. I think that maybe that's not an issue anymore with the red thread, but I haven't had much trouble, but I would definitely do delicate if you washed it in the washing machine, but hand wash certainly. And I'm happy to hear that, Fran. I love the idea of family traditions and special things that we do the holidays or with our gifts. Being really mindful with gifting is so important anymore. Well, always, but you know, these days it's nice to put a lot of thought into it. Okay, are you guys ready? Almost there. Yeah, separating from the middle, Helen, it's so much, I feel like it's it's been a game changer for me because it's like at half the opportunity to tangle, if that makes sense. All right, so we're gonna go around this last corner. Come in right here. Yep, come in right here for our knot. I'm gonna catch that fabric. Do my knot. I should have been putting those needles in the pin cushion, the pins in the pin cushion, but I wasn't. I was moving too quickly, so I have to be very careful. It is nice at this point. See, look at that. To do one more quick little pass with your iron if you want to. And there might be some little frayed threads. You just pull those out. And then I will show you quickly how so these are my little earrings, my cute little embroidered earrings that I'm going to gift to somebody this Christmas. So we have our box. And now all we're going to do is we have our embroidered edges coming out to the side like this. So you're going to bring the top over. Yes, definitely cold water. Bring your top over and then the bottom the same. And you can leave the point or you can tuck the point. And then we're just going to kind of almost accordion each side, if that makes sense. I don't pinch it and hold it. It's a little, it's a little finicky and you might take a couple times to get the hang of it. And then you just pull that through. And, flare out your little trees so everyone can see them. And look at that. And I think it'd be cute too. You could stick like a little sprig of holly or any kind of, any kind of cute little extra thing that you wanted to there. And then there you have it. How cute is that, you guys? And so many ways to make it your own. And then when, easy to open and then easy to reuse. So that's our project for today, our Furoshiki reusable wrapping fabric. I've had a really fun time doing this with you guys, and thank you for all of your questions. It makes the time pass a lot faster when I'm doing something that's kind of over and over and over again, as these trees are. And I do, I think that Maddie mentioned from Michael's, if you do these projects, we love to see them. So if you can hashtag either make it with Michael's or hashtag Michael's classes, that's great. And I would also love to see anything that you make. And my Instagram handle is @JenAnnHandmade. I love to connect with people. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me there. I love answering questions about embroidery or whatever you might have. I'm here for that. And if anyone doesn't have any more questions, thank you so very much for being here and have a great rest of your day.